Some people be depressed because they're mixed. Yeah, it's biracial people who think they're a different race. Like they wish they was like one race. It's a lack of acceptance. That's one thing. That's one factor. They don't even accept themselves. They're the loudest, like the biracial people who don't like, I'm mulatto, not black. I don't want black acceptance. What's up, Mulatto Vanguard? Shout out to you, bruh. Own that shit. Own your identity, bruh. He got it right. That's not a self-loading biracial right there. That's how you supposed to go about yourself, if that's what you are. Yeah, the I'm too white, too black. Not even them. Like I feel like the ones that be like, I'm too white, I'm too black. I kind of feel like they're on the path of being whole because you're not supposed to be full white or full black. You're supposed to be a combination of both. Mulatto Vanguard, we're our own race for sure. You're right, bruh. Aunt said he accept himself. Okay, I guess not all of us are messed up. Who telling lies? Who this person talking about? I thought this was biracial. What? Yeah, it's a biracial safe space. We're here to help biracial people in need. They got an identity crisis. Identity crisis. We here to help them. We here to get them that therapy. Nova said, I love my mixture, others don't. That's true. A lot of people got a problem with it. So she told Mulatto Vanguard, I'm black and I don't think about nobody's acceptance. Don't resort to alienate. Nobody's resorting to alienate. Like, there's biracial people in here that I'm with. That's not, you know what I'm saying? We come together, we good. You want to hear our perspective? Yeah, for sure. This is a journey to self-acceptance. We on a journey to self-acceptance. You know, no more looking in, no more looking for acceptance. You know what I'm saying? We on that journey to self-acceptance. We've been looking for acceptance for a long time in this country. Like over 100 years we've been looking for acceptance. And right now, 2023, we're on a journey to self-acceptance. Somebody say I'm biracial, that's what I call myself, and that's who I am, period. Stand on that, that's real. Somebody say you're not your own thing, you're Hispanic. You might as well call yourself Hispanic. No, because we're not, we're from America. Like, this isn't a Hispanic country. Yeah, you could speak Hispanic, you could speak Spanish, but America is real diverse. Like, just we can't just be English, just Spanish, none of like it's America is a melting pot. There's people who's white passing. What does that even mean? There's people that's white passing. Like, what do you mean by that? What's your point? Who's non-biracial? Who's speaking? I don't know. Non-biracial people that got something to say. That's because biracial people don't speak for themselves. So people are gonna speak for them. But it's when biracial people start speaking for themselves, then people, they might not have much to say. I mean, who knows us better than we know ourselves?
What's happening?
Yo, what's up?
Man, this is a good ass prompt.
For real?
Like
Why you say that?
so like I like live in the South, right? I live in
Hold on, we
Arkansas.
can't hear you. Or I can't hear you.
My bad.
Now I can hear you.
I'm gonna put in my headphones, be able to hear me a bit better.
Yeah, I got you. Christine, for sure. Now, what was you saying?
Yeah, so I live in the South, and they be like a lot of people who are like black and white and really be hating on the fact that they black. It's super weird.
Hold on, wait. What are you? I'm pretty sure everybody in chat want to know.
I'm black and white.
Oh, okay. Just so we know where you coming from, like your perspective and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's like there's just so many people here. Like I just be talking with them, and they just be like trying to like downplay like the fact they're black. They be trying to hide it. They be talking about getting their nose done and what have you. And I'm just going, they still gonna know you black, dude. Like you can't erase
Oh,
that.
there's biracial people trying to look white where you're from?
Oh yeah.
That's wild.
No, like
That's
I like
wild.
was dating this girl and she was biracial too, and I'm thinking, I am not gonna have to have that conversation. So we end up talking about these issues. And we get to the point of the conversation where she's just like telling me how she sees herself as like all the other different little white girls around there. Like she don't see herself any different from them. And I'm just like, but they treat you like shit all day. They say racist shit to you day in and day out. I'm like, how do you not see? How do you not like? I don't know. It's fucking weird.
Somebody said, what part of the South? Like, what state? Georgia?
Arkansas.
Arkansas. I don't know what's going on with the biracial people out there that want to be white.
Bro, Arkansas is like 4 shades of fucked up. Let's just be clear.
So, what about you? What you lean more to your black side, or are you trying to embrace being biracial?
I mean, I'm black and I'm Irish, right? Like, I got no problem with claiming either side or representing either side. I always lean heavier towards the black though, because that's what a lot of people be using against me. So I'm just like, fuck it, I'm gonna embrace it. Like, yeah, I'm black. You got a problem with that? I don't fucking care. Like,
Yeah. So, what do you think about like biracial people like that do have problems and probably could use other biracial people's help on a lot of issues, but it's hard to do that. It's hard to come together when we don't see each other. Like we're more like picking sides of black or white.
I mean, like, you can hold 2 positions at the same time that don't necessarily look like they would work together. Like, I
No,
break
I'm gonna
it
give you an
down.
example. Like I'm
All
gonna give you
right.
an example. Okay, like this topic right here, right? And you as a biracial person and I'm a biracial person, we could understand a lot of things that other people will like invalidate or gaslight. Like we could have more of weight on the conversation if we was to communicate together versus, oh, I'm not gonna associate with you because there's no biracial problem. You're black, I'm black. So we can't really see the biracial problem because we're not even looking at it. Does that make sense?
I
What's
was
up,
waiting for that
Stephanie?
audio.
Hey y'all.
What's up, Alan?
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
You know, when I first got up here, I thought this was the bullshit, the opposite of what it actually is, and I was just pissed. And I said some bullshit, and then I was like, wait a minute,
What
this
do you
is.
what do you think it was?
This, I thought it was, I thought it was the same shit I see all the time about how fool black people are always talking about the problems that biracial people have, and I just am tired of that fucking conversation.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of black people talking about the problems they see with biracial people, but there's not really no biracial people talking about how they see things and what's their,
Well, let me tell
the.
you one thing. I will tell you that I've been in several rooms and I've had several conversations. If you couldn't see my face or the color of my skin, some of the things that I say, people take it differently than a browner skinned biracial person in the same room, in the same conversation. And so, did it used to piss me off? Yeah, but I really don't care what anyone thinks. You know what I'm saying? But like, people look at me and they automatically assume that I'm not what I say I am, and I really don't care. Never really had that problem until I got on social media. But it's funny because I'll say things that literally other black girls say, or other biracial girls that are darker than me, and it, everyone in the room will like be in an uproar, like I'm like almost like I said something that triggered them or something. But they look at my skin, and they automatically assume like I'm not black. And I always tell people I'm black. I don't care. I don't use the word. I don't use the word mixed because my mom had. My mom used to tell me that mixed meant something, but I'm not going to say it out loud because it might offend some people, and I don't want to offend nobody. But
Are
my
you
mother.
like do you know about like the history of mixed people in America? Like, have you
Yeah,
ever,
I'm
has
black. My
anybody?
mother's black. My grandmother's black. All of my family are brown skinned black. I'm just biracial. My dad is white, but I don't claim being white because my father didn't. My father denied me. My father didn't. He doesn't even to this day. He doesn't say that he has. I have a twin sister, and he's never told anybody that he had kids. He usually says he doesn't have kids. Whatever. My mom is black, and I always tell people a black womb created me. Therefore, I am black. Like, and I don't care what your opinion is. I'm not asking for approval. I'm not asking for permission to be black. Like, that's what I am. Like, you're gonna have to take my skin color up with God.
Okay, let
Like,
me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If your father was like good to you and like you had a great father, do you think you would see yourself differently? Because you said you don't claim like your white side because of your father, right?
yeah, because I don't have any. I don't have any association with any of my any. I don't have that. I mean,
So
I
basically,
don't know.
you're
Hypothetically, maybe, but I couldn't. I mean, I can only tell you what is reality, And I don't think that people that do have great fathers and mothers on both sides, they love their families. I think that they're totally like they don't have to have permission to say that they're black and white and love both sides. I just think that I should have permission to say that I'm black without somebody being like, "No, you're not," or
I
whatever.
don't think they're doing it to like be hateful. I think they're just like telling you like, that you're two things combined and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's
No, there's
not.
nothing wrong with it, but I'm saying like my experience, the life that I've lived. You know what I'm saying? My family that has raised me, like it's nothing different than a person that has a black mom and a black dad.
Yeah, yeah, I get it.
You know what I'm
You
saying?
grew up in like
So
a
I'm
society
able
that's
to
just
say
built
that
by majority
they look
black
at my
people.
yeah. If you couldn't see me, you wouldn't know.
Right. Let me FMJ, can you cam up real quick? I just want to like show like make a point. Like,
So,
cause you clearly like you're biracial, right? And FMJ, he's biracial too. So like, if you look at like, I'm just trying to like, we have a look. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Like, I see similarities between you both. So like, for people
Which
to
I think it's
say,
crazy when people look at me and say that I'm like, I do not look like a white girl. Like, come on, like
exactly.
stop it, like stop it, like stop for
Like, I think there's a difference
you
between
know.
looking like you're mixed with white and looking white. You know what I'm saying? They just go to the extreme instead of saying the truth, like you
It's
look like you're
ignorant.
mixed with white. Instead of saying that, they go to the extreme and be like, you look white, and that's kind of an insult to somebody who's not full white. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because just because like
But
that's what
all
I said.
this
You have
leads
to
to
believe.
self-loathing. You know what I'm saying? You understand that all that psychological That's like psychological warfare. That all leads to like
No.
being self-loathing.
For me, I literally have never had an issue with it until I got like, I don't have an issue. I didn't know there was an issue that people had an issue with the biracial community until I got on TikTok. Because
I
I
mean,
was black growing up. Everybody looked at me the same way they looked at my sister, the same way that we looked at every other biracial child in the neighborhood,
mo-
and all the black
most
kids.
of us,
Like, we're
yeah,
all the
most of us
same.
was
Like,
black. Most of us was black growing up. I think that what's happening is that there's more biracial people now, so we're starting to see each other more than before. You know, before we're just growing up just around. It'd be like one biracial person and like 20 black people in a space, right? And we're
or
just
you'd have like one biracial kid and they grew up around all white people in the country or something. They didn't have
right.
black people around. They were the only black person, and then they grew up white, and their parents were white, and they, the mom married a white man, and now they're this random black kid in this family that literally is being ostracized, and microaggressions are being poured out to them, and they don't. What are they supposed to do? How are they supposed to know how to combat that? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then they become adults who then become the biracial people that people don't like, and it's like, is that their fault?
Yeah, so we
But
got biracial people all over. We got them in white communities, black communities. But like what's starting to happen is that we're starting to like recognize there's more biracial people. We're starting to recognize each other and the problems that we have. And we're not agreeing with a lot of it. Like you said, you're not a lot of biracial people in here. And I think it's important for us to like just have conversations like how do we, you see a lot of problematic biracials, right? That you feel
Oh
are
yeah.
problematic.
Oh yeah.
So like we really need to have a conversation with these other because they're just gonna continue to be lost because nobody's gonna understand us better than we understand ourselves. So I think that we could do a service to have like communicate and get to an understanding. Does that make sense? But I want to let Alan talk. He has, he's up here. He ain't saying nothing. And he just left.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
Oh,
coming up. I'm just taking a guess. I think I'm a little older than you guys are, but I'm in my 50s. But
okay.
and I'm biracial myself. My mother's white. My father was black. But one of the things that's kind of always felt consistent over my few decades on this earth has been uh, kind of the on again, off again relationship that, and when I say blacks, I mean blacks that have two black parents, if you will. Um, kind of the when like in the 90s, kind of the one drop rule felt like it was kind of in effect. Like 80s, 90s, one drop and you're black. It felt like there was a greater acceptance of when someone was black, and over time it feels like the pendulum has kind of swung to the other side of the thing, and now there's almost more disdain for people who are biracial, and an effort to kind of acknowledge them as not black or not black enough, if you will. And to me, it's always been a problem because I've always kind of hated that statistically, the black community will oftentimes take the positives of people such as myself. You'll take positive data from me, right? I've been married 23 years. I have 3 children. I've only been married once, not incarcerated, educated, worker, blah, blah, blah. All of the good things I get looped into the black community, and that's wonderful. But it's amazing how when they find out that I'm that I'm interracial, that I'm biracial myself, but then that I'm in an interracial relationship, and that my children can, I think someone used the phrase earlier, can pass as white. You can hear and almost see the tangible difference in many blacks when they kind of learn that, right? And all of a sudden, what was a whole different disposition before they knew that, because I'm kind of dark myself, and so it's easy for folks to think I have 2 black parents, and I don't. But when they find out that difference, it's amazing what kind of switch just kind of turns off in a lot of the black community towards people who are mixed all of a sudden. And so it just kind of becomes problematic that I think someone wrote in the comments about biracial folks having an identity crisis, and I don't know if it's so much an identity crisis as it is a acceptance crisis, right? Because it's when it's convenient, I'm kind of in the group, and then when it's not convenient, or I not even want to say not convenient, but when it's not kind of pro-black, and I'll just use pro-black as kind of an umbrella phrase, then all of a sudden I'm kind of not in that group all of a sudden, you know what I'm saying? And so to me, that's the problem, I think, in the black community, is that there's not a full acceptance of, are we black or are we not black? Because it seems like it's situational when that's a yes, and it's situational when it's a no.
I can feel that, but I gotta say, it also comes down to your assertion. Like, you don't just get labeled as being a black person, right? Like, you have to assert it to the world. I am black. I am
Right.
this. I am that. And I feel like the thing with like a lot of biracial people, sometimes they're afraid to assert their own identity, their own
Right.
position, who they identify as. And they kind of feel like they're caught between the whims of how groups of people will view them, treat them, accept them, and trying not to make waves among that. So I feel like you have to have a firm foundation in one, being biracial, before you can actually dawn the idea that, well, society is going to treat me as black in America, so I'm going to identify more as black. You know, I've had black people come up to me and be like, bro, I don't really feel like that you really black, because like the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you dress, the way you act, the way you go about your business.
Right.
But it's like, I'm sorry, do black people not talk like me? Do black people not do shit like me? Do black people not go and get the kind of education I go for? Like, we are very, very diverse group of people.
Right.
Yeah, so Alan, I'm glad
Yes,
you
sir.
came up because you proved that there's a historical context. Like, you're in your 50s and you see people in Gen Z, it's not getting better for biracial people, it's actually getting worse. And people are deciding when, in what era we are gonna be black and when we're not gonna be black, and who is and who isn't. And I feel like that just proves how lost biracial people are, because like FMJ said, we need to insert our identity and stand on being biracial. Because when people tell us, well, you don't sound black, that's fine, because I'm biracial, I don't think I'm supposed to sound black, that's fine. Or if somebody says you're
Right.
not white, that's fine too, because we're biracial. So just inserting like who we are just solves a lot of these problems. But
Yeah.
people don't want to come to that conclusion. It's they think there's another way, and we're just constantly seeking acceptance to be black, constantly seeking acceptance to be white, and we're just fighting.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I ask the question all the time, is that when did, especially in kind of very pro-black communities or pro-black conversations, I ask the question all the time, when does my blackness get to be commandeered by the community, right? When does, because there's so much conversation, but like I said, especially when they find out that my wife is white, like I said, you can really get a very tangible moment. You can, it can almost be marked, where all of a sudden the attitude and tone and words and whatnot just slightly turn a little different. And I ask that question all the time, is that why do black folks, why do they try to commandeer other black folks' blackness? Right, that you get to kind of call it into play when you want it, and then other times when you don't want it, you get to just out and out reject it. And I think that it's a problem in the black community. Like I said, the whole on again off again of when they're in and when they're out. It is always just amazing to me, because the first love of my life was in college, and she was black. She was the one. She was my heart. She was my person. It didn't end up working out. I found love in a different person, and we'll be married 23 years this year. And this person just happened to be white. But if you just see the reaction of many blacks, their reaction is though I never had anyone black. I never had black love in my life. And it's amazing just where their mind goes with the thought of, you reject blacks, you don't like black women, all the different places that their mind goes to without having the slightest idea that that's where my first love was at.
I
But
mean,
it's,
people.
Hmm.
who identify as one racial group, right? They've all traumatized each other because unfortunately people who come from one racial group or like walk around with this belief that they're somehow this racial group or that racial group, they tend to like have this weird superior complex. So
Yeah.
they tend to inflict it on other people,
Yes.
willingly, unwillingly, knowingly, unknowingly, right? So for like a lot of black people, I feel like us biracial people especially, we can recognize the trauma they go through day in and day out. We can recognize the shit that they experience day in and day out. We can draw connections and we see both sides of this whole story. But I think what frustrates like a lot of biracial people is knowing what's going on, understanding what's going on, being just in the same position as black brothers and sisters,
Right.
and them rejecting us because they still see us as the people who
Different.
traumatized
Right.
them.
Right.
It's
Right.
like, we didn't do that.
Right. Yeah, it's a constant struggle, and I don't. I think to the host who was saying it, in a certain way, the demographic is growing. As a people, the demographic is growing definitely, and one of the fastest in the country across all racial groups. But is it getting better? And I don't know that it's getting better because it just feels like, at least in America anyway, let me put it that way, the divide almost feels like it's not right until it's getting more divided. So it just, you get batted around, irrelevant of where you're trying to land yourself. You get batted around. And the reality is that we're from A to Z. And as far as how we look and what those shades look like I said, all three of my kids look like they don't have brown skin, but they do look tanned. If you see them next to their mother is more pale and, reddish. You see their skin, it's far more yellow and what have you. But if you just saw them by themselves, you could easily think that they were just three white children that were a little darker, right? But they look like they could be three white children. But what genetics do, it's amazing. Everyone thinks they're a geneticist, right? And you just presume what a person's complexion is going to look like based off of what you think their parents are, et cetera, et cetera. But color wise, we're A to Z. And there's just not a fixed look, if you will, to what a mixed person is going to look like. And so in that particular aspect, we don't fall in any particular lane because you're just going to get the friggin' rainbow. It's just going to be the entire rainbow. And, it's a frustrating thing. And I tell my kids that all the time. They're going to have a completely different experience than what I had because of what they look like. My two girls are still in high school, but they'll get, all kind of interesting thoughts and conversations when they see that their dad is black. And then they kind of look at them, and even just in that, they don't even always look at them as biracial. They still reference me as black, but not them as biracial, if that makes sense. And it's an interesting conversation of just how society kind of looks at stuff and accepts, or even just blacks that say, "Oh, are you adopted?" And it can go all kind of different places. But yeah, I don't think the environment is getting all that much more good, but I think that it's a demographic that's growing, and people are going to come out with some black babies, not even realizing that they maybe were with someone. You know what I'm saying? That things are going to happen, and people are going to be surprised because they think more mixed people are going to not look mixed.
But do you know? I know why all that's happening. It's because society hasn't accepted biracial people.
Yeah, yeah,
Like they accept us as like we live in a society that sees things in only black or white. That's the only way we see things. We look at people, we go and we try to, are they white? Okay, they're white. They
right,
look white. Are they black? Okay, they look
right,
black. Oh, you're brown skin. Oh, you're light skin. Oh, light skin. You're black. Society only wants to see things in black and white. So the fact that we only see things in black and white means that the society hasn't accepted biracial people.
hmm,
Like they accept us as black or white. They haven't accepted us as what we are, which is biracial.
right,
And we're not seeing that being represented. We're not seeing biracial people being represented as biracial. They're being represented as black. So it's not us who are confused. It's society that is confused by us because they want to put us, they want to absorb us. Like white people want to absorb us and black people want to absorb us. And they've been doing that for what, how long? Like white people, when they wanted to pure their race, they just pushed all the biracial people in the black space. And when the black and it worked for black people because they wanted to improve their numbers, so they just took us in,
Right.
and it never really put us in a place where we could be our own thing.
Right.
And
Yeah, I mean, even at a tracking level, government-wise, state government, local government, federal government, or even even in employment, it's inconsistent. Even when they do track information, even digitally, all forms, you may not even be able. Sometimes you're only able to check one. Sometimes you're just other. Sometimes you're two. I mean, even just the tracking of it for school, for employment, for state, local, federal governments, it's all kind of different. So there's not even a consistent means of definition, across the board. And so to me, it just kind of adds to that level of, I don't want to say confusion, but just that level of kind of chaos, because you can't even define yourself as you are. Sometimes you are forced to make a selection that may not be fully true.
so then what do you think the plan is going forward as the multiracial population continues to grow at the speed it is and will continue to grow? Like, what's going forward? Because more of us is going to be created. And at what point you're not going to just be able to box us in black or white?
I mean, for me, it's kind of tough to, like I said, I feel like I'm a little on the older side of this, but if I just project forward in my mind, I feel like it's less going to be a reaction from those who are mixed, and it's more going to be kind of a visceral reaction from those who consider themselves kind of purely one or the other, like black, just using black or white. I realize there's obviously multiple racial components to people, to people's backgrounds, but let's just say black and white for the sake of the conversation. I feel like there's going to be more of a visceral reaction in the future from blacks and whites than there is necessarily going to be a reaction from those who are mixed. That the divide is going to be more, we are black over here and you are just something else.
I mean, well, that's what I'm saying. Like this, as far as the census go, there's people who are not claiming black anymore.
Correct.
They're starting to claim multiracial. So, like, I think like in the future it's going to be even more. That's what I'm saying. Like, the multiracial number on the census is probably going to go up 500%.
Yeah. I think it's the fastest growing demographic, and I think of it. I
Right
think
now,
black,
like the last
right,
time
yeah.
it was 250% it went up. But I
Yeah,
think next time it's going to be 500% because black women
I'd
are
agree.
starting to date out too now.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And I mean, that's going to be a large number of
Yeah,
people that's saying they're not black, they're biracial,
right.
multiracial.
But that's why I think in a certain way it's going to kind of be somewhat of a negative response from the black community, because I think that's the only way that some of them are going to define being black, right? The definition of black isn't going to expand with biracial people. The definition of black is going to constrict to being just black. You know what I'm saying? That I feel like that's what the reaction is going to be. Not that black gets bigger, it's that black gets smaller. And because of that, it's just gonna have negative feelers around it. I don't think it'll be a good definition. I think it'll be a restrictive definition, and that's problematic.
Yeah, and it's also a problem because that's going to be a lot of people who hate themselves if we don't like come to
Right,
something now. Like that's why I made
because
this
they're still
live like
calling themselves
self-loathing.
black. Right, because they're still calling themselves black, and that very community is, at least from a squeaky wheel perspective, those that are kind of pro-black are loud, right? They say that, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it kind of comes at that cost of, again, kind of that on again, off again relationship of when you're in and when you're out. And it's just, I think it's a boiling problem, and it's only going to continue to get to a higher boil. And like I said, I think the definition of black is going to be constricting and not expansive. And that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of black people are just going ahead and saying that, biracial is biracial and black is black. And I don't see nothing wrong with that because they should preserve themselves, like they have every right to. And I just want to like start another topic. I want to talk to like some biracial people who feel self-hate, like they don't like the fact that they're mixed or whatever the reason is. There's some people who say that they wish they were one race. I really want to talk about like I feel like that's that internal hate I want to really
I mean, I wouldn't say it's
have a
internal
conversation
hate
about.
because I don't like the fact that, I'm multiracial. Like, I don't like the fact that, I have other things in me and people only see one particular aspect of me. When people look at me, they see somebody who's black. And then certain other times, depending on the light or whatever, people be like, oh, you look like this and you look like that. What are you mixed with? But I mean, it also depends on the type of biracial person you are as well, because every biracial person is different. If you have a white mother and you're biracial, you will not understand or go through the same thing that a biracial child with a black mother does. You get like it's different for all y'all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been
Because
listening
I
to a lot of.
guarantee you that black woman is instilling in that child something totally different than what, a white woman would instill in her child.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's case by case because like Magic Mulatta, she has a black mom and she's like saying a lot of stuff that a lot of biracials, well, white moms are saying. And she's actually lives with her black mom right now, and she's talked to her mom about these things, and her mom is kind of like agreeing with her, like she doesn't understand like why her people is telling her, she's not biracial, she's black, like because it's like they don't even have like she doesn't share the same image with her daughter basically, but like she understands she chose to date a white man, and it is what it is.
Yeah, it also depends on. I mean, it depends on the person. That's just like how some biracial people can admit that their white side is racist. There's some black sides that are anti-black. I mean, there's a lot of black women out there that black men as well that speak down on other black people. So it just depends on how you're raised and where you come from.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of different like no like what I'm noticing just talking about biracial people, not all biracial people on the same page. You know how like
No, they're
for
not.
there's a common thought with white people and there's a common thought with black people. When it comes to biracial people, we have no common thought. We don't have like a consciousness that's specific to and we all know why that is because biracial ain't really been a thing the last 100 years, but I feel like it's starting to surface because our numbers are growing, like people are creating us like crazy now, like before it wasn't allowed, so it makes sense that this era is happening. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you were forced to kind of fall to you know, one side of the field or the other. But now I don't want to say acceptance of it, but the exposure of it, right, seems like it's more prevalent and it's okay to identify. But to your point, it hasn't had a historical foothold. You've either just been black or you've been able to pass as white or, whatever the other thing you may have been made of. It was, you were able to just kind of hide there, if you will. And now for
Right, and
some
we
to hide,
oh my
right.
bad. Right, but we've been basing this off of the first centuries of America
Yeah.
was segregated. It wasn't until 1960 that you could interracially date. So we're basing this all off of not even be able to create mixed people,
Yeah.
and we're in a different era where just what 50 years. How long has it been? 60 years. It's been 60 years since not even a full. There's people still alive that was in 1960. So
Yeah.
it's like we're just now getting into a stage of America where mixed people are allowed to be created. So we've been
Right.
basing this all by mixed people are black based on segregation. Segregation is no longer, so we can't base it off of that no more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
I've
can't
had it
just
when you talk
push.
about.
I mean, I don't know how to feel about that because my mother was born like right after segregation ended, but my dad's mom is biracial, white father, black mother. Mother's also mixed, but black. So
But
my
that's right
grandmother was
after though. You know what I'm saying? It's not
no, no,
too
no.
far
My
back,
grandmother
so the
was born
effects are
during
still there.
segregation. Her parents got married during segregation. I was saying my mother was born right after, so I don't know how to feel about it. But um, they were together. They were married. They got married, when their kids were older or whatever. But they stayed together that whole time. Um, and her white father, raised her as a black woman. He told her, "Yeah, I'm white, but you black. They're not gonna ever see you as anything other than that." And my grandmother wasn't a light skinned mixed person. Like she probably was a little bit darker than me.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying, all right, like, somebody said biracial history is black history. That's my point. Like history is the same, but now, for example, we're saying that mixed people are seen as black. Like the numbers don't lie. The
Yes,
census is
society you
showing.
are.
I know, but
Depending
the
on how you
census
look.
don't But look, that's what I'm trying to say. Like nowadays, people are starting to see mixed people. That's what I'm trying to say. Like before, we were just all seen as black. Now people are starting to see mixed people as mixed. Like it's starting to happen because the numbers don't lie. More people are identifying as mixed. So the more people that identify as mixed, like if 3 million people are identifying as
That's
mixed,
all
and then
of
20 years
America.
from now, but look, 20 years from now, 50 million people could be identifying as mixed, and it's just gonna be seen as mixed. That's what I'm trying to get to. Like the way that mixed people are being seen is changing.
If you're an American by, you feel me, like third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, 10th generation American, you're mixed. Slavery, you're mixed. Like a lot of us, there's hardly anyone walking this earth. There's very few people that are like 100% a particular race. Everybody
So
is
that just
mixed.
means that the constructs of race is dissolving.
Right.
I mean, you would want it to, but it's not going to in white America. Sorry to tell you that. If we're being
It's happening
realistic,
right now. Like there's a bunch of people in the comments saying I'm not black, I'm mixed.
I mean, that's
It's
50
all
people
over.
compared
And
to
there's
100
no, there's even black people saying
million.
that you're not black, you're mixed. It's mixed people agreeing
I
that
said
they're not
America
mixed.
to the Atlanta person. I said America. I didn't say nothing about Africans, Europeans, or Asians. I said Americans. Generation
Yeah, we're
after
not talking
generation,
about
we're
we're not
all
talking about
mixed.
anything outside of America. Like that
Yeah.
conversation, that don't even matter because people identify different outside of
Yeah, that's
America.
just like
But
I was telling my wife. She's 36% Nigerian. I told her, like, woman, you cannot go to Nigeria and tell those people that you're Nigerian. They're gonna laugh at you. They still gonna embrace you, but they're not gonna. You feel me? Be like, okay, you're Nigerian as well. No, you're not. You don't know nothing about them people culture. You've never been over there. You just took a DNA test and found out, oh, I'm this percent African, this particular tribe. Doesn't make you one of them.
right.
I want to say, I think the whole thing about mixed people or biracial people, whatever you want to call it, trying to put themselves in their own group, I think that's more of a frustration thing. I don't really think it's too much that they don't want to claim one side or the other, but I don't know. I feel like it's a lose-lose situation sometimes when you try to claim either side. Like if you try to claim white, you're not really white. If you try to claim black, you're not really black. This is what a lot of mixed people run into what they get told. And after some point, when you encounter that for so long, you just like, F it. I'm just mixed. I don't want to argue with people about what I am. So I think it's more of that kind of thing and not necessarily that, you know, it's something that mixed people want to do. I think it's just a frustration thing and they just get tired of arguing with people.
I ain't gonna lie, for me, it started out as like that, like I'm too white for black people, too black for white, and it turned into the I'm just my own thing, my own like to the other to my group is the people who feel too white and too black. That's my group. It turned into that. It was just something I tried out and I'm like, I start liking it. Like, yo, this is actually where I belong. And it's like I went from it was a thing that I didn't want to now it's a thing I want. Does that, like what you just said is facts, but now it's a thing I actually want because it's making sense to me as a biracial person. Like it don't make sense for me to sit up here and be like I'm white and then go around white people and I'm sitting here talking to them and we want to politic about race. I don't agree with shit they say. Like I don't get where they coming from because it's obviously gonna be just racism, right? And then when you get around black people and you're politicking, like what they think that the problem is, but you've been in white spaces and they're not gonna really understand the depth that you understand. So it's like I can't
Well, I think
really politic with them either. So I can get in my own zone and there's biracial people I talk to and they get it. And I feel like we have a different objective, a different plan. A higher power let us exist for a reason. Like white people and black people, they say they different races, but they can still procreate. So how much different are they? So I think we have a bigger plan as biracial people. That's just me. That's just how I feel. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying like we superior and we could do better than what they're doing. I just think that we have a whole different perspective of how they view society in general.
right. Well, I think too much of especially from the black community, I think too much sometimes that recognition and alignment are kind of conflated, right? It's like if a biracial person acknowledges that they may have a white parent, again, in this particular example, it's kind of treated like that means alignment or anti-black. You know what I'm saying? And
Correct.
and that's the that lack of distinction is a problem. I can acknowledge that my mother was white. I can even acknowledge that my mother has racist tendencies, and we've had plenty of fights and gone back and forth, and we have been estranged because of some of the behaviors and things like that she had. But that has nothing to do with being aligned with them, either politically, financially, whatever, etc. It's got nothing to do with that. But too often it's treated that way. And so
Guys, I don't mean to interrupt, but okay. So I'm a Danish American citizen, and my mother is biracial. I live in Detroit, one of the blackest cities in America. Usually I don't say where I live because it just says a lot, but every time I walk outside, I have someone from the black African American community, right, asking me what I mix with. And never have I had, actually, about only 10% outside of the African American race ask me what I mix with, okay? As a Danish American citizen, someone that was born in Denmark, a lot of people don't even know where that country is. It's next to Germany, it's part of Scandinavia, okay? White people in the United States are mixed. Black people in the United States are mixed. When I see white people in the United States, I can differentiate someone who is Polish, someone who's Slavic, someone who is Scandinavian, different kinds of descent. One thing I'll have to tell you is Danish people, when they mix with Africans, they don't have all the different mixes that you guys have here in the United States, okay? A lot of people tend to have dark hair and dark eyes. In the United States, when the white people, quote unquote white, and the black
Hey,
people,
Project, we don't need a history on Danish and how people look
there's
because we're
no
not talking
history.
about appearance.
There's no
But look,
history.
I just wanna.
I identify as a biracial person, and I'm
Uh,
just letting you guys know. Someone in the comments says, I got married in Denmark. I left Denmark. Denmark is probably one of the most racist places to live. They put people on a bus and told them back in 2017 to get out, immigrants. The problem here is that everybody wants to be very unique. I will not deny that America leads a lot of people in different areas. People follow how we move. I want you guys to remember this. As a Danish American citizen, I choose to live in the United States. Okay? If you do not know what your heart is like, this is my point, then you won't know who you are. All I'm asking is for everybody to be kind to each other. When I speak, sometimes people think I'm underage. And it's sad because everyone has such prejudice and don't really listen to the fine print, which is that we're human. Some of us may not be, but we're human, and we have to be kind and leave a good carbon footprint, which is being kind to others. That is my
Project,
point.
have you been listening to the conversation? I don't think you've been listening to the conversation. We've been
I
having a
don't know why
very
you're objecting
constructive.
to what
I'm
I
not.
said.
We've
I
been
just said
having
be
a
kind.
constructive conversation. We were talking about something. Nobody was arguing or fighting
No,
about race.
nobody's
There was
arguing.
no.
I just really wanted to say this. That's all I wanted to say. I enjoyed this conversation.
I
I
know
was
you
so
just wanted
happy.
to
I just want to say
get on the
that.
platform and talk about how you felt, but we're trying to stay on topic here right now. That's all.
I'm
That's all I'm
just
telling
trying
you.
to
We're trying
say
to
this.
stay on
I'm
top.
happy that to
Just listen to the
define.
conversation.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not making a point right now. I'm just trying to
Okay, so
run.
I'm gonna leave this biracial space because
Yeah.
it doesn't belong for me.
Uh, uh, all right.
They're
See,
not
she's just in her
biracial.
feelings. Like,
Then she just said she claimed biracial, but then said the space is. I don't. You know
I
what?
don't know. I think she thinks she's still Danish. I don't know
So
what
I
she's
got a
talking
I got a
about, but
question
we
for
weren't. We were
everybody.
not talking about none of that.
I got a question
Yeah.
for
Go ahead.
everybody that's biracial up here. Um, like, what does your ID or birth certificate say? Like, does it say black or white or mixed?
Well, I was born in California, and they don't put race on our birth certificates out there because
I
California is mixed, like really mixed. So I don't think they care about that.
I don't think mine says a race on it either. I live in Ohio. I'm on the East Coast, so
That's
I
what I'm
guess it
saying. Like,
depends.
even
What
your
it
driver's
definitely
license, does it
depends.
say what it
It
like?
definitely not even on our driver license. I
Okay.
don't even. And I moved when
I
I
don't
moved
think
to Chicago,
anymore.
and they didn't put my race on there either.
I don't think they do anymore. I think when I was younger, they did put my race on there, but it was black at
Okay.
the
No, I
time.
was just asking a question because I have, like I said, I am mixed. But it's my parents are mixed. They come
I know
from
some.
biracial or multiracial people, so I still consider myself to be mixed because I'm not. Even when I did my DNA test, I'm 58% black, and I was shocked. But yeah, anyways, the reason I was asking because I have cousins that are biracial, white mother, black father. Their little sister, her identification birth certificate says white. There says black. She has her mom's last name. They have their dad's. All have the same mom and dad. But they're all white passing as well. And, they could all say that they're white. But she's the only one, that has this on her identification. And it was just funny to me because they would always tell her, oh, you're white, you're white, you're white. And I'm like, bro, she looked blacker than me. Like, she looks like a black child. Like, don't even look like her mother is anything other than a black woman. But I was just asking, trying to see because, like, I was trying to see what that meant for y'all. Because mine says black. So I was just trying to see what that meant for, like, other people. Like, do you identify with that or no?
On my birth certificate, and I was confused actually why it said this, but it just says not Alaskan Native. So I don't even know what that means. But on all my other documents, I don't have anything at all.
I think like Native Americans and like certain groups of people get like special things. Like Native Americans, they have the reservations and stuff like that. So I think
Yeah, like my
for that
mom,
it's important. So that's probably why. But
yeah, because my
mine says
mom
black.
had hers, but I didn't get mine because, once again, I'm not enough percent. I'm like 20% you have to be 25% to get your documents and everything, so you can get everything you need from the reservation or whatever. But
Is
most
there any biracial people on the right now that identify as just biracial, like not black or white, just biracial?
I do.
You do.
Yeah.
So between you and Allen, I'm just trying to see like the correlation because he identifies as black, but he knows he's biracial, and you identify as biracial. So
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? Like it's you'll know you're biracial, identify as black, and then there's biracial people who identify as biracial. I identify as biracial because I'm just comfortable with that.
Yeah,
I feel like it allows me to be both. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't like when I say
exactly.
I'm black, I just don't. I feel like I'm lying. I feel like I'm just like I feel like something's missing. You know, so if I just say I'm black, but if
Right.
I say I'm biracial, I feel like I'm accepting the fact that I'm black and white.
Right. I
You
know,
know?
like, growing up, it was always kind of like a pull, especially after my parents separated, because my dad is Hispanic, multiple kinds of Hispanic, and my mother, she is Moorish, and we have, like, they have completely different backgrounds. So I identify as both because, just to let my parents know, like, hey, I'm proud to be, you know, coming from both sides. So
Yeah.
it's not like, you know,
Yeah, I didn't have any. I didn't have. I was talking earlier. I didn't realize I was on mute. My apologies. My mother's from the former Republic of Yugoslavia, so her half there is Eastern European, and they're a little darker. They kind of have a little olive hue to them, but they still look white. But they have a little hue to them, and so which is why I'm kind of darker myself, and it's a little easier to presume that both of my parents are brown, at minimum. But in any event, a good chunk of mom's life was always trying to detach me from being black. But a lot of that was, I think, her kind of shadow boxing her history with black men, and just the black community in general, kind of rejecting that and then just trying to cast that through my life to try to separate me from being black and consider myself Yugoslavian, or the former Republic of Yugoslavia. It's modern day Macedonia right now, but to try to get me to identify as Macedonian versus as a biracial person. So to the host that was speaking, I identify myself as biracial. I realize the world sees me as being black. But when someone asks me, and when I fill out forms, and even when I fill out forms for my children, I try to utilize the most of that I can, and give them, and myself, the identifications that the forms allow us to give. So if it's more than one, I'm checking more than one because I consider myself more than one. But I recognize that the world sees me as a black man, or a brown man, if you will.
All right, Alec, I want to say something to that. Like you see yourself as biracial, but the world see you as black, right? But for me, I see myself as biracial, and so does the world, because when people see me, they always get what I am wrong. Like they'll be like, "Are you Puerto Rican?
Yeah,
Are
I would get that
you?"
a lot. Yeah,
You know what I'm
Hispanic.
saying? So I get
Right,
a lot of things.
right.
Sometimes I even get you look like you got black in you. So the world really doesn't see me as black.
Oh, right. No, I hear you. I hear you.
So I think that that's you. I just want you to understand where I'm coming from. Like like I'm having a biracial experience. Does that make sense?
Right,
Like I'm not
right.
having a black experience. I'm not having a black experience because both sides see me as something else, and I feel like that's a problem because both sides don't like each other.
Right.
So if
No, I
both
agree with
sides
you.
don't
Yeah.
see me as one of them, where do I stand?
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I
I
and
mean,
I fall into that as well. I have too many
and that
ways to
also
be
comes
biracial.
from where you come from, and that means the city and state that you was born and raised in, or the country wherever you're from. Because out here in Houston, Texas, a lot of y'all would be considered black. You know, like a black person out here would be like, "Oh, they black."
Mhm.
You feel me? They probably mixed, but they black. Like that's how we,
Right,
perceive people out here, and that's it's
right,
not
right,
wrong. It's not
right,
right at the same time, especially if y'all are saying, you don't feel that you should be, that you can claim your blackness.
right.
But yeah, it depends on where you're from as well, because my cousins, like I was explaining earlier, they're mixed to the T, to where they have two different parents. Like it's not like me, but they're considered black. You can't tell them even how white they look. You cannot sit there and tell them three boys that they're not black. Like they gonna fight you tooth and nail. I'm black, I'm black, I'm black. Like they don't see themselves as anything else because of how they were raised. They raised in the hood,
Right.
That's their ways. That's all they know. All their friends, brothers, and sisters are black. They the only biracial children that their dad had, and this man has 20-something kids. So,
Goodness.
they grew up around black people. So they feel
Right,
more
right.
comfortable with us. Yeah, they still, see their mom's side or whatever, but it's just their grandpa that they see and their uncle. And, they still act the same way they act around me is the same way they act around this man. And, he can't stand it, but he knows that these are my grandkids. They're different. If they were around me, they wouldn't have been raised that way. But,
Yeah.
a lot of people would consider him racist, but he's not a racist guy. He just old school military guy. And
Right.
that can be perceived as other things. But it depends on where you're from. Because, certain other places like little small towns, some places in the South, you're going to be treated differently. You're not going to be treated the way you want to be treated. Some people may look at you and be like, oh, you're a white boy. You going to come hang out with us, then they found out that you black. Oh, it's a problem now. We no longer cool, this, that, and the third. But I also wanted to say it was a movie that my mom used to make me watch when I was younger. Because I'm light-skinned. Both my parents don't look like me. The only thing I have is their face. Other than that, I don't look like my parents. And my mom used to make me watch The Imitation of Life. And it was about a young biracial woman, white passing, with a black mother that denounced her mother and, disrespected her up until the day the woman left this earth. Was, stayed with the white people and everything until the man did to her because he found out, oh, you're black. So everybody's experience is different.
Yeah, I mean, it's so how do we get to a place where like say like are your biracial family members they see themselves
Even
as
if you
black?
wanted it to get to a place, you still gonna have groups of biracial people that are put in separate groups. So
I mean
it's
that's fine. That's what I'm saying. Like that's fine. Like if you're
because
put
even in
in
the
a
black
black
white
category,
biracial community, you still got to separate the ones that have black mothers from the ones that have white mothers, the ones that have black fathers, the ones that have white fathers. You have to separate them too because their experience is not yours. You feel me? If you
I
were
don't know.
raised by a
I
white
mean
woman,
I relate a lot with like I said a biracial girl
yeah,
who
you're gonna
has a
see a
black
lot of
mother.
relation there, but you never walked in their shoes.
I
You wear a
mean,
size
I
9. You
come.
can't
I
put on
mean,
that size 6
we on the
and
same page, and I
strut.
feel like that's all that matters is that we're on the same page. It's not to say like, what I'm saying. There's like my sister's biracial, right? And she fits like that's all she associates with is the black community, and we're the same. Like we got the same background. She has a white mom, but she's not. She don't lean to her white side. She just leans strictly to the black side. And me,
And
I'm just kind of like solo with it.
but do
And
you
I don't.
honestly think that your sister would sit here and have a respectful conversation? You know that with y'all being siblings, you know her better than anyone else. Do you think that you could have your sister in this same group with you
Yeah, I mean,
and it be
like
civilized,
she
or
knows what I'm saying is the truth. You know what I'm saying? She just don't care. Like it's like well, I'm good. Like she good where she at, and just like how she respect me being in this space. I respect her being like I don't be like, oh, you need to stop hanging out with them. They don't respect. I don't do all that. Like I just let her. She's good. If she good there, I'm happy for her. And vice versa. Like she know what I'm doing, and she's like she don't even really support it. She just like at the end of the day she see me as her brother and she gonna stand on that. She don't really care about the race thing. Like she all her friends black and she just strictly black, just nothing white, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like I say, I'm solo. I don't really do too much with white people. I don't really do too much with black people no more. I used to, but because I'm on some biracial shit. That's just how I feel. And she respect it, you know what I'm saying? She don't like if that's what you want to do, that's what make you happy, cool. Same thing with her. She cool, she good over there. I'm glad she good over there, you know what I'm saying? I want her to eat and I want her to strive. You know what I'm saying? And I'm with it's a community, like it's already a community of us, you know what I'm saying? I've been like talking to a lot of biracial people and that's my people. That's how we getting it. And black people is her people and that's how she getting it. So I feel like biracial people should have that opportunity to be in black spaces and biracial spaces if they choose to. You know what I'm saying? It's not like segregation where she got to come over here now. Nah, you could be in either space. Why can't we be in each other's spaces? You know what I'm saying? Why can't
Right.
she be in a black space, and then if you biracial, you want to be over here, you could be over here. What's wrong with that? It's not like we choosing white supremacy or anything like that. We just on some self-preservation, trying to eat just like everybody else. We not trying to hurt and harm other communities like the white community get. But let's be honest, if we get into segregation, why was it bad? It was bad because white people had better shit and they was giving black people the worst of the shit. Like they was giving them bad fountains. They got to get in the back of the bus. But if everything was equal, if black people had their own beautiful bus and they could sit in the front, would you be saying segregation was bad? You would? Because isn't that the same thing of what race is?
Was
Why
your
not?
was your example of if black people had their own bus and white people had their own bus?
I'm saying what like why was segregation so bad is because of the way black people was treated, right?
It was bad because no matter
And I'm just
It
saying
was
if black people
wrong.
was treated equal, if black people was treated equal, would it
Segregation
have
was
been as
bad because
bad?
people were being separated based off of their race. That's why it was bad. Separating people based off of their race or their gender or their ethnicity is weird. It really is. But my whole thing is, so basically you're saying like the biracial community wants to separate from the black community.
We're trying to separate, not segregate.
Okay, so you like to separate from the black community.
I feel like we already had though. That's not even a conversation though. Like, I mean, people like she said, it's
Well,
biracial people
I
gonna do
don't
what they
necessarily
want.
think that you have. I think that it's a small sector of black biracial people that would like to now identify as biracial.
Well, I'm saying we have. It just ain't mainstream. Like it's already happening.
Yeah, I don't really think it's the majority of black and white biracial people that are
It's
doing
not
it.
the majority, and that's
Right.
cool.
I
Like
don't think you
that's
can
that's fine.
claim to have done something if it's not necessarily the majority, because the majority rules it. Well,
But
at
it
least,
don't.
at least
It's
in
not
this
to say
country.
that might be the majority someday. Because on the census, people are not even identifying as black no more. So
Right.
like,
So
you don't know the future.
but that really has nothing to
We
do
just thinking
with
ahead. We
that really
before our
don't have
time
that
right
really
now.
doesn't have
The
anything to
biracial
do with
people
anything,
that
because
have their own community right now, we are like 20, 50 years ahead of our
when
time.
it comes down to like job applications and housing applications and things like the census that has to do with the government, we understand that people of color have a distrust for the government, so sometimes we won't check off the comments because we understand that racial discrimination to be a thing. That doesn't really have anything to do with what we're talking about here.
Well, that still helps multiracial people in the government's eyes because
Okay,
that's
so
how they're seeing
what
it.
is okay, but when we're having a conversation of race, it's based on phenotypes. If we're talking about being mixed with other races, at least 80% of Black Americans literally are mixed with other races. But that doesn't mean that
I
they
don't
can
know, but
go
I
around.
feel like you're going off topic. Like this is not even a conversation right now
How am I going off topic?
because this whole thing is about biracial people hating themselves and not wanting anything for themselves.
Okay, but you can't necessarily stereotype and generalize an entire group of people based off of your
I'm not talking
anecdotal
about every
experience.
biracial. I'm talking about the ones who don't like their self and the ones that think that biracial people don't deserve anything.
What do you mean by biracial people don't deserve anything?
Like they don't think we should have our own identity politics. They don't think we should have a community. They don't think we deserve love. They don't think our problems matter because other people's problems are worse. Like there's a lot of self-hate. There's a lot of self-loathing. They just
Okay,
think they don't
so
deserve nothing.
what problems do biracial people face?
Can I
There's
go
a lot. Do you really
first,
want to go over
please?
this?
Yes, I would like the examples of the problems, please.
So you don't even know that biracial people have problems?
I'm asking you like
I
what
feel like that's a
problems
problem in itself.
what I'm asking you is what specific issues do
All right,
biracial
can we let
people
some? All right, we
do
gonna get to that
biracial
question. Can
I'm
let what's her name talk real
wait,
quick?
can I finish? Can I get my question out? I'm asking you
You already
what
asked. What
issues
problems?
do excuse me, I'm asking you what issues do biracial people face that are specific to being biracial?
All right, we're gonna
Um,
get to that question in a minute, but let her talk.
so Growing up biracial, I had huge identity crisis. From one half of my family or my peers, I wasn't accepted as being black enough or Hispanic enough or white enough. So I was always kind of like in this isolation or seclusion because no one truly understood who I was. And so that kind of put me in a state where I questioned myself a lot.
Is that specific to being biracial though?
Yes, it's specific to being
No, it's
biracial.
not really specific to being biracial, because I can say that I was too black for the white people, and I was too black for the black people, as a monoracial dark skinned black
So you're
person.
just saying that to invalidate us.
No,
That's
I'm
a
not
biracial
invalidating
problem
the
right there.
experience. I'm
You're
not
an
invalidating the
example of our
experience.
problem.
I
You're
never
using things to
invalidated the
invalidate
experience.
our
If
experience.
I were to invalidate the experience, I would have said that the experience wasn't real. I'm just
No,
saying
you
that's
said
not
that it's not
what I
specific to
said was
biracial
it's
because
not.
such and
It's
such.
not, because anybody can experience that. You don't have to be biracial to experience that.
How can a black person experience not being black enough? Please elaborate.
Well, there are black people that are told that they're not black enough for a lot of reasons. For instance, I went to private school with white tea people, so essentially, I quote
So
unquote.
if you didn't go to a private school, you would be black enough?
Excuse me. I'm trying to give you the
That's not the
example,
same
and now
thing, ma'am. That's not the same thing, man. If you're not black enough because you went to a white school, that's not the same thing as a biracial person saying I'm not black enough. Because if you didn't go to a white school, you would become black enough, right? That's basically what you're saying. So that's not the same thing what we're talking about. So it's specific to biracial people. I'm gonna give you a lot of examples what's specific to biracial people. Here's one. This is specific to biracial people. I can't identify as biracial. That's specific to me because you have a problem with it. If I say I want a biracial community, you have a problem with it. That would be racial people because you're it's even constitutional that we could come together, and you're sitting here telling us we can't. That's specific to being biracial.
This is why I think that a lot of people really
Pacific,
want
Pacific.
to
I don't care. This is the
go
English
on.
language. Like what?
That's why I think people really, a lot of mixed people really want to, identify as being biracial or just mixed now because of
Being
those kind of
invalidated and
arguments.
people
Like,
not trying to right there. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like that right there is
people speak
why.
out
Like
about
it's
when they talk about the issues that we encounter as mixed people, even though, yes, some of it is intersectional, but some of it's just not. And when we speak on it, we always get shut down in that manner. So, like, I feel like that's why a lot of people, kind of are like, yeah, I don't want to be associated with white or black. I'm just be biracial because other biracial people understand what I'm saying when I speak on certain topics, and we relate to each other's experience a lot.
exactly like how she just didn't understand me, but you did. Like what?
Right.
How
And
the fuck?
I disagree with
It's
some of the
clear
stuff
as
that's being
day.
said, but at the same time, I can understand why those things are said and whatever the case, why a biracial person might feel this way or that way, because I've seen it myself as a biracial person, the different experiences that we have. And like I said, some of it's intersectional and some of it's not. So, it's I, that's why I think it is important for biracial people to have a space to where they can talk about whatever issues, whether they're intersectional to Black people or another race or not. It's just important for us to be able to talk about it. And it's just
Yeah, I
hearing
mean,
that.
I appreciate this space. Even when I don't host them, when I see other biracial spaces and biracial people coming in there to talk, I really appreciate those things, and I'm pretty sure you do. That's why you came up here, and it's hard for us to do this when people are just so mad about it because we don't want to hurt nobody's feelings. At the end of the day, we're not trying to like oppress anybody. We're not trying to, you know, we're not coming for nobody. We just trying to do us, and people got a problem with it. And it's biracial people who just don't even want to be in the space because it's just like they don't want to deal with the drama, and people just bring in nothing but drama and drama and drama. And I feel like that's specific to being biracial. Like biracial people can't come in their own space without people bringing drama, drama, drama. You know what I'm saying? So that
Um,
right there is specific to us because it's pertaining to us in the first place. So how can somebody say that's not specific to being biracial? How is it not when it's pertaining to us? Like the title is literally us. Like that's crazy how they just come up with this
like what she was
nonsense.
saying, like she went to a private school or whatever. Like she experienced that probably because she went to a white dominated school. I can go to any school and experience the same kind of issues. Like I've done both. Like I went to an all white high school for a year, and then most of my life I've lived in predominantly black spaces. So, but I've occasionally been in like white dominated spaces simply because it's just life. There's lots of people everywhere. So can't really avoid that. But and I experienced a lot of the same issues, like isolation, not really fitting in anywhere, like nobody accepting you one way or the other. Like it's definitely like a biracial specific kind of thing. So
Yeah. I mean, I wanna move the conversation on, which is a lot of biracial people talk about. It's like image issues, for example, and this probably has to do with prejudice, and I know it's probably rooted in colorism because, and I'm not even gonna get into the whole. I do agree that darker skinned black women experience colorism, right? But because their issues is worse doesn't mean that light skinned biracial people or just light skinned people in general don't have an experience that is due to them being light. It might be not as great as colorism, but it's still a problem. And just because one problem is worse than the other doesn't mean that this problem shouldn't be solved either. And that's cool if dark skinned black people don't want to talk about what light skinned people go through because color is more of an important issue. That's good. Be loud and talk about it in your space. But when we're in our space talking about it, when we're talking about what we go through, don't minimize because we're not coming into your space and saying, trying to minimize. We want you to be loud. We want you to talk about it. And we deserve that same if we got the same goals, equality, we should be given that same respect. Does that make sense? Like if we should be able to talk about light skin or biracial issues. So like one is, and this happens a lot with like light skinned people, like they don't want to be light skinned. Like I know a lot of biracial people who are light skinned who will
I
literally
can.
tan. Well,
Can
let me
y'all hear
finish.
me?
They'll
Okay.
they'll tan. They get darker. Like they really hate their skin and they want to get darker, or they'll say stuff like, "I want to have kids with a darker person so my kid can come out darker." And it's like you don't even like your own skin. And I feel like that's a problem with light skinned people that they just want to be darker. And it's like the same thing when dark skinned people used to bleach their skin and want to be lighter. Now you got lighter people trying to make themselves darker. And I feel like both things are wrong. Like both is self hate, and both need to love the skin you're in. You know what I'm saying? You're not comfortable in your own skin. I feel like that happens with both dark skin and light skin. And just agreeing that it happens with both is a better conversation than being like, oh no, only dark skinned people experience this. Because the whole colorism thing is biased. Because how can you say only dark skinned people experience this when light skinned people go through shit for being light skinned? So I feel like a better conversation, a more equal conversation. If we equal, if we all black, we should be saying, because the real problem is white people. If we all black, like y'all say, we should be saying light skinned people and dark skinned both go through self hate. We both should love our own skin that we're in. But that's not the conversation we're having. We're just focusing and centering one side. But then when we go and do it and center ourselves and be like, well, we ain't gonna talk about your problems. We gonna talk about our problems, and that's still a problem. So, what do y'all think about that? Go ahead.
um as far as colorism goes, like I feel like colorism affects light skinned people, but not in the way that it affects dark skinned people. I feel like colorism is an issue because a lot of people make lighter skinned people feel like they are better than darker skinned people just because they're light skinned. And I think that's the issue. And I think a lot of times, like when we're younger, we get told this or we're taught to believe this view, and it's not corrected. So, you know, it's a lot of mixed or light skinned people get this idea that they're better than other people just simply because they have lighter skin. Though it's a hard topic to even speak on because, I can see other things. I can see it going the other way also. I've met people that feel like they were better simply because they had darker skin. That's more rare than the other thing, but so
Well, like I said, I'm of an older group, and so back in the '90s when I was in college, especially the early '90s, was kind of the dawn of the whole kind of the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice type narrative. And like when I was younger, I don't even know if you guys know who Al B. Shore was. He was an R&B singer back in the day, but I used to look like him, and that was my nickname was Al B. Shore. But when kind of the whole jungle fever, all that stuff kind of came out, there was a big push against anti-light, and it became very pro-black, and so there was a push culturally to darken. You know what I'm saying? Dark became in. It was like the pendulum was, black was just told it was ugly for so long. And then the pendulum swung and now black was beautiful. And the darker you were, the more beautiful you were. It was the exact opposite kind of push. But for those who are mixed and most of that population having a lighter skin tone, you always just kind of fell into this because it was like I wasn't even trying to claim a better status because of the way that I looked, but so much of that perception just gets thrust upon you just because of what you look like, right? And so you're dealing with this pushback for stuff that you didn't even kind of believe yourself, you know what I'm saying? But it just was thrust on you, and you just don't have a place to land. And so, yeah, I mean, I would agree that colorism doesn't kind of affect dark versus light in the same type of way, but the net effect is still kind of the same difference. You just didn't have any place to land, right? And wherever you landed, you were just damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you tried to land in biracial, it was like, what the hell are you? If you tried to land in black, you're going to run across folks and be like, some would say, yeah. Some will say no. Some will say you're a little different. You know what I'm saying? You were just damned if you do, damned if you don't. And you just kind of learn to live life, just kind of adjusting to whatever that immediate crowd that you're around. You read the room, you understand it, and you're kind of like a chameleon at a certain level.
I mean, that's a good point, Alan. Like back in your day, like when the black community or just black people, society was saying the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. How did they think that made light skinned people feel like inferior? Because it's
They
like,
didn't give a damn. Right. That was the collateral damage. Right. They didn't give a damn. It was deliberate.
and that's not, you know what I'm saying? They're not being honest about that. And I feel like that's problematic.
Yeah.
And they don't, and then when we speak on stuff, it's be quiet, sit down and listen. You got to work. And they make all these excuses as to why it's okay, but it's not. It don't matter. It's just not, just because it's coming from you and you've been oppressed by white people, it don't make it okay. You know what I'm saying? We're not finna excuse that. You can't just let that fly.
Well, like I said, pro or acknowledging mixed was oftentimes interpreted as anti-black. Right? You were always just.
But who
working
interpreted it like that? I feel like that's a gaslighting, like it's gaslighting. It's a tactic. Like,
Right, that's what I'm saying. Right, but that you were always mixed folks were always kind of working from behind the eight ball. Right? Because any acknowledgement that they did that wasn't pro-black, again, in a, black and whatever the other because that you may be in, but that's how it was always interpreted. If you acknowledge something else, then that was deemed as anti-black, and so you're always in a defensive posture, and you were never able to just be comfortable with yourself because you were always defending to saying, no, I'm not against you, but my goodness, can I recognize something else in my life as well?
So like how do you say it? The pendulum has swung. So
Yeah.
basically, you know, black dark skinned black people was going through a lot of stuff because of the color of their skin, and they fought for it to the point that the movement pushed to now. It's like almost as if like light skinned people they're becoming the inferiority ones, because you'll see a lot of light skinned girls on here or biracial people. Like a biracial girl just went live, and she was just inferior. Like they just told her to shut up, sit down, and listen, and she was
Right.
just like, "Yes, ma'am. Yes." You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's just when you see how biracial people talk, and when black people talking to them, especially like it's three, four, five on the panel, it just they talk like they're so inferior to them.
Yeah.
And it's black people get on here like they got a superior complex, like, no, you're black, you're this and that. It's like they're telling us what to do, like they have a superior complex over us. And biracial people they're just speaking from an inferior part, because like they don't even love themselves, they hate themselves. Like they'll just be like, I'm black and this is what I was told. And it's just we got no backbone. Like we don't got no, like we don't stand up for ourselves at all. And it's just,
Exactly. That's exactly it. 100%.
No.
Yeah, can I add on to?
yeah, go ahead.
I feel like a lot of the reasons why they try to shut us down when we talk about like our issues in our community is because they don't want to take accountability for how they treat us. So like they don't want us to speak out because they don't want people angry at them, and they want, you know, all the attention around their problems. But then when we speak out, it's like, you know, they don't want us to say anything because they don't want to take accountability for how they've treated mixed people. And then, you know, we as mixed people, I feel like sometimes we think we can't speak out about our own issues in our community because we believe that, you know, we're going to be shut down, told to shut up, sit down, and that the black community, their problems are more important than ours. And it's really not fair at all.
I think it also has a
I
lot to do with what Alan's saying about how that makes them feel like, oh, you're anti-black if you're not
Yeah.
claiming it, you know?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah. I
agree
mean,
with all that 100%.
I mean, part of the struggle, I mean, just to be real and candid, is that, you know, even in TikToks and stuff like that, you'll hear a lot of the narrative that asks the question, can black folks be racist? Right. So of course it goes into all of its different kind of discussion points, but what is kind of confronting a lot of the black community that they don't kind of want to deal with is that in large part, a good chunk of the black community treats mixed people the same way whites treated blacks, right? And it gets right at the core of the very ugly you hate is the ugly you're doing to other people. And can we get to a point of acknowledging that you have the same propensity to be ugly towards others as you believe white folks were to black folks? For the
I mean,
you know, and it's a hard question. That's a hard accusation. That, you know, that's right up front, but that's kind of that's just what's right there, right? You're doing the same thing you hate, but yet you won't acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying?
right.
You're doing the very same thing you hate. Folks are kind of stuck in the middle of that, right? Because you're just, but to me, that's kind of the cancer that's in the black community, is a lack of kind of communal recognition that, yeah, the community is kind of doing the same ugly shit to mixed folks that you do to that black, you know, that whites were doing to blacks. So no, the physical aspect and hanging, you know, none of that stuff is happening, but the same kind of vitriol, where that's coming from, that kind of, that deep gut space that's not good, that it's the same source, right? You see us as an enemy. I don't know how many times I've heard people speak about interracial children that they were kind of engineered to be a tool to destroy the black family, right? You're looking at me like I'm a weapon.
Exactly.
Can I I just wanted to speak on what Alan was saying.
All right, then I'm gonna go after you. I want to add something to it too.
Because I had an experience with someone in my family saying this. But I had my dad's sister basically, you know, would tell her kids they better not ever bring a white tea woman home.
Sure.
You know, like she's gonna kick them out. And you know, that used to kind of upset me because my parents never raised me like that. You know, it was never, you can't date this person, none of that. So it kind of made me upset. But then she's older. She sat me down. She sat her kids down and she explained why she felt that way. And that mainly came from, like I said, my people was born right after segregation ended, and some of them were born in it. So those people that come from that time that are still alive, y'all have to understand segregation ended in 1964. Y'all president was born and went through segregation on the opposite side. So yeah, these people are still alive and well. So a lot of y'all's grandparents and parents raised differently. They were, raised by people that were hurt by YT people that, they went through all of this stuff. So the way that they're raising you is only because of what they went through.
And they got to be careful with that to not become like those people. That's what he's trying to say.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know
I
what I'm
get
saying?
that, but I'm saying the older generation, like your grandparents, your older aunties and uncles, not necessarily your parents, because clearly they were raised in a different generation. But, your grandparents and stuff, while they might look down on you or your aunties and uncles might make you feel some type of ways because they were raised by people that was being beat, discriminated against, hurt for no reason, ran out of schools, ran out of restaurants, all of this stuff. So that was their lifestyle. That's how, in a lot of Southerners, some of them still to this
But
day,
wasn't
they
light
live
skinned
that way in
biracial
fear
people
of
going
white
through that
people.
with black people though? That's what I'm not understanding.
What was that? I didn't hear what you said.
Wasn't biracial people, light skinned people going through that with black people? Like everything you're saying? Like
Yes. I mean, of course, black people did. That's what that's another thing, y'all are trying to separate yourselves,
but I'm
because
just
y'all
saying,
don't
like
feel
we went through it with
listen, I'm
y'all,
not saying
so how are we
separating in a
getting
bad way.
the
You're
the
separating yourself
hurt
because
people
you don't
hurt people?
identify with white or black. So you're right in the middle. You only identify with what's right in the middle. You don't know what it's like to be black. You don't know what it's like to be white. So you identify with what's right in the middle, which is you, a
Right.
mixed race person. I get that. But,
So what, like Alan said, like with the TikTok thing, I'm gonna just go on this and then we're gonna talk about how we can heal. Like we know the problem already. Obviously, we know the problem. So, but what Alan said about like TikTok, they're asking, can black people be racist? And can it be racist towards white people? That's a whole different conversation. Like
Right.
that's a different conversation. But can they be racist to biracial people? I feel like that, like the fact that somebody would even ask that is, you're aware of what you're doing. You're asked, like, to think that you can't be racist means
Right.
that you know you're being racist, but it don't apply to you, like it's excused. So you know what you're doing, like but I'm not racist. Like I could do this, but I'm not racist. So you having that mentality, you already feel like you could treat people that way. So they're already admitting to the fact that they're doing it by even asking, can they do it? You know what I'm saying? So because you feel no guilty conscience behind doing it. And but we're gonna move along. Like, how can we heal from this? How can biracial, like, how can we get to a better place to just, instead of like having an identity
it
crisis?
has to
Am I
be it has to be within yourself. Like you have to come to an understanding within yourself that you're biracial. You're not black, you're
facts?
not
I
white,
agree with
you're
that.
both. I'm biracial. You have to come in terms with that on your own because, like I said, the outside world is not going to see you how you see yourself. You can see yourself as a king or a queen. You walk down the street and somebody be like, look at this motherfucker. You feel me? Like, what the fuck is going through their head? So everybody's
Right.
perception of you shouldn't matter anyway. So if this is a
Exactly.
safe space for biracial people and y'all all know that y'all are biracial, you're not this, you're not that, I'm this,
I
then let
appreciate you
that
saying that.
be that.
That's what needs to be heard, and I feel like that's
No, it's
what we're
facts.
trying to. Like, I respect that, and also what we need to change is how we talk about ourselves. Like how biracial people talk about themselves is, it's the same thing. We talk so bad about ourselves. Like we need to see the positives in ourselves and how we could use both. Like we're half white, half black. How can we empower that through ourselves? Like how can we use like these ideas from both sides? We got influences from both sides. We could create our own thing and be something that I'm not trying to say like we'll be ahead of white people, ahead of black people, but we could really
Well,
use that to our advantage.
yes, my mom always told me you can have the best of both worlds. You take the good from your white side, you take the good from your black side, and you do with that what you will. Like you can have the best of both worlds. And Joni's right. Like we really have to, we are what we are, stand on it, and don't let anybody tell you shit. Like you are what you are, you know? So, I mean,
I'll
but
say,
Yeah, so it just
we
comes
can
down
have the
to
best of both
self-love.
worlds. Yeah.
I also think it comes down to surrounding yourself with people that accept you as you are, people that can accept are black
yeah.
and white at the same time and don't have an issue with you, talking about whatever issues, come about in your life or whatever the case may be. You just have to find people that accept you for who you are. And I wanted to say something about because the comments is going crazy, but I want to say something about I lost my train of thought. Damn it. Go ahead, somebody else. I'll get back to my train of thought because I lost it.
Yeah, I would just say I got to bounce my people doing campfire in the background, so they hollering at me. So I need to go see my peoples. But I would just say, like I said, I have my two girls are in high school, they're junior and seniors, and it's amazing. Oftentimes that I hear when I'm an attentive person. I watch. I think biracial people tend to be kind of observant people, just by nature of things, but neither here nor there. But it amazes me oftentimes when I hear their friends that I'm black will say, "Oh, I didn't know your dad was black." And the conversation will kind of go some places. But I had a conversation with my girls on the way home, and I said, part of what I kind of want you to do as an individual is to what the host is saying about trying to embrace what you are more than to living a life, not of running away from it, but of trying to not acknowledge it, so to speak. You know what I'm saying? It's not a deliberate run away, but you're not acknowledging it. And that difference between saying, "Oh, I didn't know your dad was black," versus them saying, "No, you just didn't know that I was biracial." Right, right. That it's subtle in its language, but it's a huge difference because it still is trying to live in this. I think the host talked about, the world trying to see things in kind of pure black and white. We just try to define these kind of straight line definitions that don't have any kind of gray or nuance to them. And this is the
Yes,
point,
sir.
is that mixed folks don't look alike. There is no monolithic mixed folks anymore. And the only way that it's going to become accepted and not accepted in the sense of not being an issue and not being this kind of otherism is the ability to acknowledge it, because it's going to look from A to Z. And I just, over time, mixed people are going to be lighter and not look mixed. Whatever that kind of works itself out to be, the visual is not going to be like it was historically. You could visually see people's skin tone and come to a conclusion. Whether or not you were right or wrong is immaterial, but the eyes led kind of what you thought. Well, the eyes over time are going to be deceived. People don't look anymore, but our backgrounds are more diverse than ever. And we just have to kind of come to grips with that. And the best way to do it is to acknowledge it when you're blessed with that, right? Other folks.
Alan, I'm gonna disagree with you, but you could be right, I could be wrong. But I just wanna. I always thought like if you gotta ask somebody what are you mixed with, then mix has an identity. There's a visual there. So mix has a look. It might be a lot of looks, but some people know when you're mixed. So there is a look for
Right,
it.
right. I'm just saying
But
it's not as
and
distinct as black
I
and
think,
what, you know
but
what
I
I'm
just
saying?
think it'll be more healthier to say like there's white passing people and there's people who pass as black and then there's actual, the original black people. I think that's okay to say that there's white passing, black passing, and then you got mixed. You just look mixed. And I think especially with black and white, I'm not talking about all the other mixes, just
Right,
specifically black and white. We
right.
we kind of know who them people are, like Zendaya. That dude Zero on Hose and Corbin Blue. Just to name a few people, like we kind of know who's black and white at this point. And if you don't know by now, that's just you're not educating yourself. You're not really trying to. You're just not learning. You're still seeing things in black and white. You're not really paying attention to the gray areas of the black and white spectrum.
Right.
But
But when you talk about solutions, that's what I think the solution is embracing. That's what I think the solution is. The more that people who
yeah, I
have
agree
that
with
in
that.
their lives embracing it, that's the best solution to making it be part of society and it not be such an ism, you know what I'm saying, or other. That's what I think the best addition that people can do to get it to a better place. So.
I'm finna close this out. So like right, close this out. Don't like the problem is biracial people don't have an idea of their own. Like we listen to white people and we run with that, like because we're trying to find ourselves. You know, when you go into white spaces and you when you basically when you have that identity crisis, I'm too white, I'm too black. Gotta stop thinking like we can't get our ideas from white people because they're not going to tell us the truth. And no shade to black people, they can't give us ideas either because they're not half white. They're going to tell you what black is all day. You know what I'm saying? That's cool. We could learn what black is from them, but you still got, at the end of the day, you still, as a biracial person, you have to have an idea for yourself of what being biracial is. Like we gotta create that so they know it, so they can understand us too. Because part of the problem why they're saying we're not biracial and you're black is because we don't think for ourselves, and that's a problem. And I just want to close this out with I want everybody, you don't have to, but if you want to just give one reason why it's important to having a biracial identity, that would be helpful. And I'm gonna pass it to Magic Mulatta. She's biracial. She has a black mom, white dad. I have a white mom, black dad, and we work really good together. So I don't really think there's a divide between a mom thing, but that's another conversation. You know, some people will argue that, and that's cool. But we're proof that we can work together and we can find common ground like biracial people. So if y'all want to give one important reason why to have a biracial identity to people who've been listening, and if you really understand, you should have why it's important. You should know why it's important. But go ahead if anybody wants to do that. Nobody? All right, cool. I'm finna close it out and pass it on. Hello?